Thank you, Gianna. At this time, I call upon Judith Gentner, Chair of the Jefferson Community College Board of Trustees, to introduce our keynote speaker.
It is indeed my privilege to introduce our speaker to you this evening, Dr. Leilani Garcia. As a child in a military family, Dr. Garcia traveled a great deal and attended many schools, including 3 high schools alone. How fortunate for the North Country that her final high school was Indian River in nearby Philadelphia. Following her graduation from Indian River, Dr. Garcia enrolled at Jefferson Community College. She admits it was not her first choice then. However, she soon realized it was indeed an excellent decision. At Jefferson, she enjoyed all aspects of student life, becoming involved in student government, playing lacrosse for the Cannoneers, and working in the lab sciences department. And here she honed her love of hospital work. By the age of 17, she had begun volunteering at Samaritan Medical Center, something she continued to do while attending JCC. After studying at Jefferson for 2 years, Dr. Garcia transferred to SUNY Albany, where she completed her Bachelor of Science in Biology. She earned her Doctorate of Medicine from the American University of Antigua College of Medicine in 2012 and completed 3 years of residency in Pennsylvania in 2015. Just prior to her graduation from her residency program, she was awarded the Doctors Across New York grant, which is given to those who make a commitment to serve underserved areas within New York State. And that is how Dr. Garcia came back to the North Country. She joined Carthage Area Hospital as an internal medicine hospitalist, became hospitalist director, and then, until its closing, served as a skilled nursing unit director. Dr. Garcia continues to serve the North Country as a hospitalist, now with Apogee Physicians at Samaritan Medical Center here in Watertown. She enjoys the challenge that all aspects of medicine have to offer. However, she is particularly passionate for acute care medicine, specializing in hospital medicine. While Dr. Garcia was born in and spent a good deal of her childhood in San Antonio, Texas, and has lived in a number of large cities in the Northeast during her training, her heart is clearly here in the North Country, where she lives with her 2 children and her husband. Without further ado, please join me in welcoming our speaker this evening, Dr. Leilani Garcia.
Thank you, Chair Gentner. Good evening. It is a true joy and honor to be able to share this night with you. Thank you, Administrator in Charge, Dr. Daniel Duffy, Board of Trustees, faculty and staff for the invitation to address such a promising class of graduates. St. Ignatius of Loyola once said, "Go forth and set the world on fire." Well, then I must have been destined for great things. Why, you ask? One winter morning, driving to JCC, my car suddenly stopped accelerating, locked up, and came to a complete stop at the top of the Coffeen Street exit. Within a matter of minutes, the hood started smoking, and not long after that became completely engulfed in flames. I shook my head because this would happen to me. I was a girl who had the worst luck with vehicles. And it quickly became quite an impressive production with firefighters, media, police directing traffic, lots of loud sirens and lights. I stood in the falling snow, trying my hardest to remain incognito as JCC morning traffic was slowly making its way down Coffeen Street. There were many honks coming from friends in their cars, and I remember their looks, typically starting off concerned, but then mostly just ending with laughing. Great. If this was any indication or foreshadowing of how my career at JCC was going to end that school year, this wasn't good. But needless to say, all ended well. Firefighters were able to save a moderately charred organic chemistry book and my lacrosse stick from my back seat. So maybe, just maybe, despite being very embarrassed, my life was not over after all. This was just one of many small bumps in the road working towards my associate degree in science, the first academic goal of your 2022 Jefferson Community College keynote speaker. When I was asked to be your keynote speaker, I was excited because I knew I would be reminiscing and sharing my experience from a very special transitional time in my life. JCC is where it all started for me and where it has for many of you. Even in those cases where I wasn't exactly sure where it was taking me at the time, or maybe I felt like everything was literally going up in flames, ultimately, it only took me to bigger and better things. I come from a large and close-knit family. My grandfather was born poor on a ranch in South Texas. My grandmother was also born destitute in Mexico, and later was adopted by an uncle in the same South Texas town where my grandfather lived. Being adopted out of a life of poverty was the only way she was going to survive a severe case of polio. After coming to the United States, she was treated and thrived in her new life. Unfortunately, a hurtful consequence of coming to the U.S. was that she ended up losing contact with her beloved family. She met my grandfather, they fell in love, and the U.S. Air Force took them around the world. Together, they raised 7 wonderful children. And later in her life, my grandmother decided to begin looking for her family in Mexico. She tried for many years, using radio as the main modality. And one day, several years after searching, a local pharmacist called the radio station. A customer of his had told him a similar story to the one that my grandmother was telling. This association ultimately led to the emotional reunion of my grandmother and her long-lost brother. One of the first questions she had for him, "Where is our mother?" Sadly, he said, "She has been gone for some time." Her brother went on to tell a story about a day he kissed his mother goodbye and left for work. He returned later to find her lifeless body. The cause of death, starvation. The very little food that they did have, their mother would give to her children. As a mother now, I viscerally understand that the love for your children overpowers everything, even one's innate feeling of hunger and fear of death. At the time of hearing this story, I was young, but I remember feeling so proud to have such strong women in my family. These women had been in major battles. One overcame and another lost, but both fought valiantly. Resilience is the ability to withstand adversity and bounce back from difficult life events. Being resilient doesn't mean a person doesn't experience stress, emotional upheaval, and suffering, but it does involve the ability to work through them. My grandmother later went on to help financially support and establish a loving relationship with her family. She wanted us to remember the sacrifices, where we came from, and how that strength that was passed on to us should ultimately be put to good use. If my grandmother could do this, I could overcome whatever challenges I chose to take on. And because of her and my great-grandmother, I chose medicine and wanted to become the first physician in my family. How I would get there would be entirely up to me, and how hard I was willing to work for it. Fast forward several years to 1999-2000, my senior year at Indian River High School. My father was active duty military and deployed often. My mother was working for a local newspaper, and my brothers were young. I applied to large universities and was receiving acceptance letters with scholarships, but ultimately, it still was not enough. It became obvious early on that financially my family was not going to be able to make up what was left in tuition. I needed a local college where I could start working towards my goal, who would work with my financial status, who understood my military family's struggles, and who would help set me up for success. A very respected community college in New York, JCC had great opportunities to offer science majors. I dove in enthusiastically to student government, heavy class loads, work study, and volunteer note-taking. During the year, including the summer, I would keep my job in the biology and chemistry departments, mixing reagents, organizing chemicals, cleaning chemistry hoods, test tubes, glass flasks, agar plates. and a lot of other super smelly jobs. Sadly, the smell of autoclave materials is the smell I will never forget. After my job on campus, many nights I would put on my uniform, drive to Sackett's Harbor, and work a waitressing job into the early morning. On the weekends, I also worked in a pop-up shop in several department stores locally. I hustled. I stayed focused on doing as many extracurriculars as possible to build my resume and making and saving money. I tried to have fun, rarely took no for an answer, never felt sorry for myself, and really kept my attention on my goal of transferring to a good four-year college. It was hard, like it probably has been for many of you. Resilience has a theory. It tells us that resilience is not a fixed trait. You can grow your capacity to practice it. It's not constant, and this means that you might demonstrate a lot of resilience when it comes to one challenge that you're faced with, but struggle more with being resilient when it comes to another stressor that you're up against. I was being tested and getting knocked down constantly. I became better at bouncing back, and the result was getting stronger and smarter. And I know now that being resilient requires a skill set that nobody lets you put on a CV. It takes time, help from the people around you, and strength. I went on to transfer to SUNY Albany and graduated with a major in biology pre-med. I continued my studies and worked harder than ever at the American University of Antigua College of Medicine, through which I later obtained my Doctor of Medicine. I was ecstatic to hear I later matched to Pinnacle Health Systems, currently UPMC Harrisburg, internal medicine residency program. I remember being conflicted about what I would do after my 3 years of residency were over. Should I specialize further and go on to fellowship? One case was pivotal in solidifying my trajectory in the medicine I practice today, hospital medicine. I was a new second-year resident rotating through a large medical surgical ICU. On day 3 of our rotation, I was asked to go to the ER and evaluate a patient for admission to the ICU by myself for the first time. While working, a steel worker in his 50s had suddenly lost consciousness, hit his head on the way down, and was in critical condition. I walked to the ER in the patient's room and into complete chaos. It didn't take long to see from the electrical printout of his heart that this man was having a massive heart attack. A large wound on his forehead was also very concerning. To the secretary, I asked, "Please page cardiology stat." Just then, our patient lost a pulse and a blood pressure. He was now in ventricular tachycardia, a deadly heart arrhythmia. Our team got to work. We started chest compressions and delivered a shock. It worked, and now we had a pulse and a blood pressure back. In addition to his heart attack, my fear was that there might also be a brain injury from trauma. If we didn't make immediate plans to treat this too, this could also cost him his life, and we quickly wheeled him away to the CT scan. 30 seconds after we take him out of the scan, he lost his pulse again. He was back in the deadly arrhythmia. A nurse wastes no time jumping on the hospital bed, starts doing compressions, and continues them on the hospital bed as we raced back to his room down the hall. There we were met by the cardiologist we paged. I updated him on the events leading up to our meeting. A minute later, I get a call from the radiologist reading our patient's CT of the head. "Dr. Garcia, this man has a large brain bleed and a very large stroke." "Page neurosurgery stat," I asked the ER secretary. Together, the cardiologist, neurosurgeon, and myself quickly discussed a plan. Do we save the brain or do we save the heart first? Without a beating heart, we have no brain function. They quickly wheeled him to the cardiac catheter lab to hopefully save his heart. Neurosurgery was on standby to take him after his heart intervention immediately to the operating room to try to save his brain. 35 minutes from the time I stepped in the room to the time the patient was taken away, and that's all the time it took. To me, it felt like an eternity. Exhausted, I walked back to the ICU and met up with my team. "Garcia, what the heck took you so long?" I explained everything. My attending's only question, did he survive? "Yes," I said. He then gave a nod of approval and continued his rounds. Early the next morning, I see this patient on our ICU list. "Garcia," my attending says, "get ready for a family meeting in 30 minutes with Mr. X's family." We walk in together and my attending opened the meeting. "Thank you for meeting with us this morning. I am Dr. X, the attending physician, and this is Dr. Garcia, my ICU resident. She saved your husband's life yesterday. For me, this was a powerful moment. This is the moment I solidified my calling. I absolutely, without any doubt, knew that going forward, I wanted to only do hospital medicine. I wanted to have every imaging modality, consultation service, IV medication, access to intervention available, and if possible, in order to save someone's life. You work hard, work through problems, and along the way, you will have some serious losses. But healthcare is a field where you also have many victories. You should celebrate those victories and give credit where credit is due. Remember who believed in you when you didn't even believe in yourself. Sometimes. That night after that family meeting, I celebrated that victory for myself, my family, and for all my professors and coaches here at JCC and along the way that nurtured my psychological, emotional, and physical resilience that was needed to sustain my new and often stressful life. If it wasn't for people believing in you, mentoring you, and planting seeds of strength, encouragement, and support, many of you and myself would be a very small portion of who we have grown into. Very recently, COVID-19 tested us all. People were dying, and our healthcare system was completely overwhelmed. As a physician who cares for some of the sickest in a hospital, we felt helpless without studies, journals, published resources, established tried and true treatments, or go-to algorithms. Success stories early in the pandemic were few, and together with our brothers and sisters in the trenches around the world, we navigated our way through the pandemic by sharing treatment plans, hearing what was failing, and how others were keeping other people alive. We also had very little personal protective equipment, or PPE, and were given one mask that we had to reuse and reuse every week. I read about a group of anesthesiologists from the University of Florida's College of Medicine being proactive and repurposing a wrapping material commonly found in any hospital or facility where surgeries are conducted. The material was called halyard, H600 2-ply spun polypropylene, and after surgical instruments go through a machine to be sanitized, they wrap them up in this material. The material is 4% more effective at blocking particles than the N95 was, blocking 99.9% of particulates per their research. Myself, along with one other nurse and another physician assistant, both amazing seamstresses, started an initiative to collect this material and start making masks. After being sewn together, we tested these masks at a local hospital, and it passed our testing there too. These ladies made over 500 masks to help our medical community. We were seeing and being part of change. People, institutions, and their communities were evolving. I recently found out that during the 2020-2021 school year, 90% of classes were remote here at JCC. For most, this change meant Microsoft Teams and Zoom were your new window to a classroom. Some of you did this while homeschooling your children, while working one or numerous jobs, or just having to be in the house now for insufferable amounts of hours with loved ones. This, I'm sure, was difficult. One's ability to face adversity was imperative and needed more than ever as people, communities, and companies faced continued pandemic impact, labor challenges, supply chain disruptions, budget concerns, and even global instability. Together, we saw an unprecedented public health emergency take over, and being isolated increased stress, depression, morale was low, and burnout was real. So I'm curious about what pushed you to continue your degree. It would have been easy to just give up and call it quits. No matter the reason, if you're sitting here tonight, you persisted, and you have been resilient. Not only personal resilience, but community resilience. This community, your academic community, saw you through. Thank you, staff and administrators. Because of you, we have a new generation of ambitious, bright, driven individuals who will hopefully go out into the world and be more confident as ever to tackle obstacles they never thought they could handle. Too many people misunderstand community college and community college students. We are not lesser students of lesser institutions. We are graduates of great colleges that serve great people in great communities across the country. Graduates who become the backbone of American productivity, ingenuity, and vitality. Recently, I spoke with a friend and JCC student who is also a single mother. She was explaining how her personal life had caused some setbacks in her educational journey, causing her a delay in receiving her degree here. She says, "I'm embarrassed this is taking me so long to complete." What I would tell anyone who criticized her for extending her time to complete their degree, I would say that real life involves work, and not everyone has the privilege to just stop working. 42% of you are military related. 20 of you are graduating from a nursing program, consistently ranked as one of the best in New York State. 9% of you are single parents. And if I were to go off this class's statistics, the majority of you are not someone whose mom and dad paid for everything. I would almost guarantee half or more of this class works at least part-time. You have all managed to juggle studies on top of a full life of personal and professional commitments. Throw a worldwide pandemic in there also, as if it wasn't hard enough. Dr. Ahmed Sood from the American Psychological Association says, "Resilience is the core strength you use to lift the load of life." I can tell you from experience, this load does not get much lighter by lack of responsibilities or lack of emotion, but how you carry this load can help. Through competency, confidence, having a strong connection to the people who care about you, your character, your contribution to your community, how you cope with stress and handle setbacks, and ultimately, how you control the outcomes of your decisions. This will help you carry your load. I am especially honored to be speaking tonight because there's a person here that has always been a calm in the storm for many, including myself. He's a professor of chemistry and recipient of the prestigious 2020 SUNY Chancellor Award for Excellence. Dr. Venkatachabulu, please stand. To me and others, you have been a passionate teacher, advisor, mentor, and friend. You've been a faithful, resilient, and fierce supporter of this institution for almost 30 years. Your patience was never lacking, and your guidance always appreciated. Your mentorship has been invaluable. I'm thankful for you because you have showed me the investment and loyalty to one's educational institution is absolutely necessary to the vitality of its existence in a community like ours. As you prepare for your retirement this month, we are excited for the next stage of you and your family's life. You are so well-deserving, and you are certainly leaving a legacy here that nobody can replace. You will be missed. Thank you, and congratulations. In closing, there is a Latin phrase, aut inveniam viam aut faciam. This translates to, I shall either find a way or make one. It's time to use the knowledge you've obtained to pave your personal path to success. This may require working harder, but not all worth having always comes easy. Wherever you are going, show them that you do not cower in the face of adversity or from a challenge. You are ready, and you are resilient. Whether your journey is to go on to a four-year college or your college journey stops here, never forget where you started. You will have failures, that is guaranteed. Give yourself grace, but keep going. Please continue to humble yourself. Stay thankful, stay open to learn, and watch yourself grow. And in between your transitions, come back and say hello. Stay connected, and if you can, teach the next generation how you did it. Congratulations, class of 2022.
Dr. Garcia, thank you for those inspiring words. Your educational journey and the path to your chosen career is very unique to you, yet at the same time, It is relatable to so many levels for our graduates. We are so proud that Jefferson was part of your pathway to a successful and rewarding career. You may have noticed that in her remarks, Dr. Garcia did not mention her own graduation from Jefferson Community College. She actually transferred to SUNY Albany following her 4th semester, just a few credits shy of her Associates of Science degree, something she often wishes she completed. Although she went on to complete her bachelor's degree and ultimately her Doctor of Medicine from a prestigious university, completing that associate's degree remained important enough to her that, like you, she applied to graduate this evening from Jefferson through a reverse transfer of credit from SUNY Albany. Dr. Leilani Garcia, please rise. We are very pleased this evening to award you the Associate of Science degree in Natural Sciences, Allied Health, and Biological Sciences. Congratulations and welcome to the Jefferson alumni family. One more.